I still remember the exact moment I found out. I was sitting in my car staring at my bank app, waiting for my paycheck to clear. It was a ritual at this point, a habit formed after years of scraping by, making sure every penny was accounted for. Dot. But something was wrong. Dot. The number on the screen wasn't right. Dot. For a few seconds, I thought it was a glitch. Maybe I was looking at the wrong account. Maybe I had miscalculated a payment. But no, the savings account that I had been growing for years, the one I had sacrificed for, skipped vacations for, lived frugally for, was empty. Gone. I felt my stomach drop, my breath hitch. My hands shook as I scrolled through the transactions, each one confirming what I already knew. The money had been withdrawn in one large lump sum. Dot, by my parents. I don't remember the drive to their house. I don't remember slamming the car door shut, or storming inside. But I do remember my mother's face when she saw me. That moment when her eyes widened for a split second before she plastered on her usual saccharine smile. "Oh, Rachel, you're here early." I barely heard her. My vision had tunneled. "Where is it?" She frowned. "Where's what, sweetheart?" "My money," I ground out, my fists clenched so tightly my nails dug into my palms. "The money I've been saving. It's gone." Something flickered across her face then. Guilt. Annoyance. I couldn't tell. "Oh, that," she said with a wave of her hand, as if we were discussing the weather. "We had to borrow it, honey. Emily's wedding expenses were getting a bit out of hand, and well, you know how important this day is for her?" I thought I misheard her. I had to have misheard her. "You took my money," I repeated slowly, each word dripping with disbelief. "For Emily's wedding." "Rachel, don't be so dramatic." My father's voice came from the kitchen. He strolled in, setting down his newspaper like this was just another normal morning. Family helps family. You weren't using it right now anyway. I felt something inside me crack, a deep, painful fracture splintering through my chest. "That was my down payment," I whispered. "For my house. I worked for years." "We'll pay you back," my mother interrupted, already turning away as if the conversation was over. "You know we will." No, they wouldn't. They never had, Dot. They had always found ways to make me the afterthought, the responsible one, the one who never asked for much. But that didn't mean I had nothing to lose. That money had been my future, my independence, my proof that I wasn't just existing to serve everyone else's needs. I should have fought harder. I should have demanded they fix it. But the reality was, the money was gone, and there was nothing I could do to change that, Dot. So instead, I swallowed the bile rising in my throat, turned on my heel, and walked out. But I didn't forget, Dot, and I sure as hell didn't forgive. I didn't go to the wedding. I was supposed to, of course. My name was on the guest list. There was a seat waiting for me at the reception, probably shoved somewhere in the back with distant relatives and plus ones no one actually knew. My mother had called me twice that morning, reminding me to be on time as if I had ever been late to anything in my life, Dot. But I couldn't do it. I couldn't sit there and watch Emily twirl around in a dress that my stolen dreams had paid for. I couldn't smile and clap while she and Jared cut into a $1,000 cake, while I was still trying to figure out how to rebuild the future they had stolen from me. So, I didn't go Dot. Instead, I sat in my tiny apartment, the one I was still renting because I no longer had a down payment for a home of my own, and scrolled through the pictures my mother sent me. Emily was radiant. She always had been. Blonde, delicate. The kind of woman who looked like she belonged in a bridal magazine. Jared was handsome, of course, with his perfectly styled hair and expensive suit. He looked like the perfect groom, the kind of man who made promises and kept them. Funny, how appearances could be so deceiving. I swiped through picture after picture, my stomach twisting with every smiling face. My parents looked overjoyed, beaming with pride. The guests were dazzled. The decorations were flawless. The entire event was a dream come true. Emily got everything she wanted, and I was supposed to be happy for her, but I wasn't. I was bitter, resentful, angry in a way that felt all-consuming. It wasn't just about the money. It was about the years of being overlooked, of being the responsible one, the one who sacrificed, while Emily took and took and took But I told myself it was done. The money was gone, the wedding was over, and all I could do was move forward, 3 months later, Emily came crashing back to reality. It happened on a Sunday. I was at work when my phone buzzed with a text from my mother. "Call me, it's urgent." I ignored it at first. Whatever crisis they were dealing with, it wasn't my problem. But then the texts kept coming. "Emily needs you. Come to the house. Please." I debated it for a full hour before finally giving in, When I got there, the first thing I saw was Emily, She was sitting on the couch, curled up like a child, her face blotchy and red. Her wedding ring was gone. Her perfect makeup was smeared. She looked wrecked. "What happened?" I asked, my voice colder than I meant it to be. Jared was gone, Just like that, No warning, no explanation. He had drained their joint accounts and vanished. The perfect husband had been living a double life. Another woman, another future. A whole separate existence that Emily had been too blinded by love to see, And now she had nothing, No money, no home, no husband, And my parents? They were furious, heartbroken. Not for me, of course. Not for what they had done to me. No, they were heartbroken for Emily. "Rachel," my mother said, her voice pleading. "She has nowhere else to go." I stared at them. At the parents who had stolen from me. At the sister who had always taken without consequence. I could have helped. I didn't. Instead, I picked up my keys, turned on my heel, and walked out, heading toward the apartment I had just purchased on my own. I wish I could say that walking out of that house was the most satisfying moment of my life, that it felt like justice, like balance had finally been restored. But the truth was that as I drove away, my hands gripping the wheel a little too tightly, I felt something closer to emptiness than victory, For years, I had been the afterthought, the one who sacrificed, the one who watched from the sidelines while Emily got everything she wanted. And now, for the first time, she was the one left with nothing, And yet, all I felt was tired. I tried to shake it off. I told myself it wasn't my problem anymore, that I had a fresh start, a new home, a future that no longer revolved around being the responsible one, But the universe wasn't done with me yet, Because less than a week later, Emily showed up at my door, She looked worse than before. Her hair was unwashed, her usually flawless appearance unraveling at the edges. She was wearing sweatpants. Emily never wore sweatpants. "Mom and Dad wouldn't let me stay," she said, her voice small. I blinked, caught completely off guard. "What?" "They said I needed to figure things out on my own," she whispered, her bottom lip trembling. "That they can't afford to take care of me right now. That—" Her breath hitched. "That they already helped me enough." I laughed. I couldn't help it. A sharp, humorless sound that felt like it scraped my throat on the way out. "You mean like how they helped me?" She flinched. "Rachel, please." She had nowhere else to go. For a long moment I just stood there, staring at the woman who had always been handed everything. The woman who had never struggled, never sacrificed. And now, she was asking me for help. I should have slammed the door in her face. I should have told her to figure it out the way I had to Instead, I let her in, Because as much as I wanted to hate her, as much as I wanted to turn my back the way she had always turned hers, She was still my sister, and I wasn't like her. I wasn't like them. Letting Emily into my home felt like inviting a storm to settle inside my walls. She stepped inside hesitantly, as if she expected me to change my mind at any second. Maybe I should have. I had spent years resenting her, years watching her get everything she wanted while I struggled. And now, when the roles were reversed, when she was the one drowning, I was the only person she had left, The irony was almost poetic, She hovered in my entryway, clutching a small duffel bag, probably the only thing she had managed to grab before Jared left her with nothing. I wasn't sure what to say. Emily, for once in her life, was silent. Guest room is down the hall, I finally muttered. You can stay for now, but this isn't permanent. She nodded, swallowing hard. I know. And that was that, The first few days were awkward. We barely spoke. I worked late, and she spent most of her time locked in the guest room, only emerging when she thought I wasn't around. I could hear her at night, though. Soft, muffled crying that she probably thought she was hiding well. A part of me wanted to feel smug. This was karma, wasn't it? This was what happened when you spent your life taking and taking until there was nothing left, But instead, I felt uneasy, Because no matter how much I wanted to believe Emily deserved this, watching her unravel felt more tragic than satisfying. Then, one evening, everything cracked open. I came home late to find Emily sitting at my tiny kitchen table, staring at a cup of untouched tea. Her eyes were swollen, her fingers trembling slightly as she traced the rim of the mug. She didn't look like my sister. Not the version of her I had always known. The Emily I knew was radiant, untouchable, always standing in the light. This Emily looked lost, Without thinking, I sat down across from her, For a long time, we just sat there in silence, Then she said barely above a whisper, I thought he loved me. Something in my chest twisted, but I ignored it. You thought a lot of things. She let out a weak, bitter laugh. Yeah, I should have left it at that. I should have gotten up and walked away. But instead the words came before I could stop them. Why did you do it? My voice was steady, but inside, I was anything but. Why did you take my money? She flinched. I expected her to get defensive, to say something selfish, something cruel. That was what Emily did, wasn't it? But she didn't. Instead, she closed her eyes, exhaled shakily, and said, Because I thought I deserved it. Her honesty caught me off guard, She looked up at me then, her eyes glassy. I've always gotten what I wanted, Rachel. I never thought about what it cost anyone else. I just assumed. I assumed it was supposed to be that way. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. And then when Mom and Dad said they couldn't help me, when they told me to figure it out, I realized that I'd never actually had to stand on my own before. She swallowed hard, gripping the edge of the table. I thought Jared was my safety net, that he'd take care of me, that I'd never have to struggle. Her voice broke on the last word, And for the first time in my life, I saw my sister for what she truly was. Not a villain, not the golden child, just a girl who had never learned how to survive on her own. I didn't forgive her. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But in that moment, for the first time, I understood her, And somehow, that felt like a start, Understanding doesn't erase the past. It doesn't make the betrayal disappear, or bring back the years I spent being the afterthought. But it does something else. It makes me realize that Emily wasn't invincible. She was fragile, built on a foundation of entitlement that had finally crumbled beneath her, For the first time in her life, she had to face the consequences of her actions. And for the first time in my life, I had the power to decide what that meant. I didn't tell her I forgave her. Instead, I asked, "What are you going to do now?" She blinked at me, startled. "I don't know." I leaned back in my chair, arms crossed. "Well, you're going to have to figure it out, because you can't stay here forever." She nodded slowly, like she'd already expected that answer. "I know." Emily had never worked a real job before. She had floated from one hobby to another, from one comfortable situation to the next. And now, she had nothing to fall back on. She spent the next few weeks applying for jobs, something she had never done on her own before. I watched as she fumbled through applications, frustration clear on her face as she realized how unprepared she was for the real world. But she didn't give up. That surprised me. She didn't complain, didn't beg our parents for more help. She just kept going. And slowly she changed. I noticed little things. The way she started cooking for herself, instead of waiting for food to magically appear. The way she cleaned up without being asked. The way she hesitated before speaking, as if she was learning, maybe for the first time, how to consider someone else's feelings. One night, after another failed job interview, she sank into the couch beside me with a tired sigh. "I think I finally get it," she murmured. I glanced at her. "Get what?" Her lips pressed together, a shadow of shame flickering across her face. "Why you were always so angry." I wasn't sure how to respond to that. She let out a small, self-deprecating laugh. "I thought you were just bitter, that you were jealous of me, of the way Mom and Dad treated me." She met my gaze, something raw and painful in her eyes. But I see it now. They never really prepared me for anything. They just handed me everything, and I never stopped to think about what it meant, about who had to suffer for me to have it. Her voice softened. "I'm sorry, Rachel." For the first time, it sounded like she meant it. I took a deep breath, the weight of her words settling somewhere deep inside me. "I'm still mad at you," I admitted. She nodded. "I know, but for the first time I thought maybe, just maybe, that anger wouldn't last forever. And that was enough. As the days passed, something strange happened. I stopped waiting for Emily to fail. Maybe at first I had expected her to give up, to crumble under the weight of responsibility she had never carried before. But she didn't. She kept applying for jobs. She kept trying. And eventually she got one, an entry-level position at a small boutique downtown. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't the kind of job Emily had ever imagined herself doing. But she took it without complaint. The first day, she came home exhausted, her hair in a messy ponytail, her feet sore from standing all day. She dropped onto the couch with a groan, rubbing her temples. "I don't know how you do this every day," she muttered. I raised an eyebrow. "You think I come home skipping with joy?" She let out a tired laugh. "I used to think you were just naturally responsible, that it didn't bother you to work all the time." She looked down, her fingers twisting together. "I guess I never thought about how hard it must have been for you." I didn't say anything, but for the first time I felt something shift between us, like we were no longer standing on opposite sides of a battlefield. That didn't erase the past. It didn't mean everything was suddenly okay, but it meant something. Over the next few weeks, Emily saved every penny she made. She didn't go out. She didn't buy new clothes or expensive makeup. She just worked. And then, one evening, she dropped a small stack of cash onto the kitchen counter in front of me. I stared at it, confused. "What's this?" She exhaled slowly, her hands trembling. "It's not much, but it's a start." I frowned. "A start for what?" She swallowed hard. "For paying you back." I blinked at her. For a moment, I didn't know what to say. Because Emily, my Emily, had never paid anyone back in her life. She bit her lip, looking down. "I know it doesn't make up for everything." but I want to try. I ran my fingers over the bills, something tight and unfamiliar forming in my chest. I could have refused it. I could have told her that no amount of money would ever make things right, Dot. But instead, I nodded. Okay, because maybe, just maybe, this was what change looked like, Dot. She didn't stop there. A few months later, she found a tiny apartment across town. It wasn't much, just a one-bedroom with old cabinets and thin walls. But it was hers, Dot. The day she moved out, she turned to me at the door, holding her suitcase with both hands. "Thank you," she said softly. I nodded. "Take care of yourself." She gave me a small, hesitant smile. "You too." And just like that, she was gone. I stood in the quiet of my apartment, realizing for the first time in a long time that I wasn't angry anymore. Emily had finally learned what it meant to stand on her own, Dot. And me. I had finally let go. Months passed, and life settled into a steady rhythm. Without Emily in my apartment, things felt quieter. Not just in the physical sense, but in a way that stretched deeper. The constant undercurrent of resentment, the years of bitterness. I hadn't even realized how much space they had taken up in my mind until they were gone. I focused on myself, on my own life, my own goals. I finally started looking into buying a house again, this time on my own terms. No stolen savings, no sacrifices made for someone else's dream, Dot. And then one evening, my phone buzzed. "Emily." I hesitated before answering. "Hey," she said, her voice softer than I remembered. "Hey." There was a pause, and then she cleared her throat. "I just wanted to let you know. I got a promotion." Surprise flickered through me. "Already?" She laughed, a real unguarded laugh. "Yeah. Turns out when you actually work hard, people notice." I couldn't help but smile. "Who would have thought?" She hesitated. "I also, I sent some more money your way. Not all of it yet, but I'm working on it." I exhaled, leaning back against the counter. "You don't have to keep doing this, you know." "Yes, I do," she said firmly. "I can't change what I did, Rachel. But I can take responsibility for it. And I want to." I closed my eyes for a moment, feeling something settle inside me. Something that had been unbalanced for far too long. "Okay," I said finally. "Thank you." Another pause, then, "Do you think we could grab coffee sometime? Just to catch up?" I thought about it. About the years of rivalry, the wounds still healing, the space we had put between us, Dot. And then I thought about the girl who had walked into my apartment broken and entitled, and the woman on the other end of the line now. One who had finally learned what it meant to take responsibility. "Yeah," I said. "I think I'd like that." And for the first time, I truly meant it. Emily and I met for coffee on a quiet Saturday morning. It felt strange at first, sitting across from each other as two adults, not as the sisters who had spent years locked in an unspoken battle. She looked different. Not physically. She was still the same Emily with perfectly done hair and a natural confidence that made people pay attention. But something in her eyes had changed. She wasn't searching for approval. She wasn't waiting for someone to fix things for her. "So," she said, stirring her drink, "how's life?" I took a sip of my own coffee, considering. "Good, actually." She raised an eyebrow. "That sounded like a surprise." I chuckled. "It kind of is. I think I got so used to being angry, to feeling like life was unfair, that I never stopped to consider what it would be like when I just let go of all that." Emily nodded slowly. "I get that." She glanced down at her cup, her fingers tapping against the side. "I used to think I had it all figured out, that if I just wanted something badly enough, it would happen." "That's because it always did," I pointed out, Dot. She let out a breath. "Yeah, and look where that got me. We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of everything that had happened stretching between us. But it wasn't heavy anymore. It wasn't suffocating. "You know," she said finally, "I've been thinking a lot about how things used to be, about how much you gave up, how much you sacrificed, while I just expected things to work out for me." I didn't respond right away, because I knew what she was saying, but I also knew that holding on to that anger wasn't worth it anymore. "You're making things right," I said. "That's what matters." Her lips pressed together. She hesitated. "I wish it hadn't taken losing everything for me to figure it out." I shrugged. "Sometimes that's the only way people learn." She nodded, staring into her coffee like it held all the answers. Then she glanced back at me. "Are you still looking for a house?" "Yeah," I said, surprised she remembered. "I've been taking my time, making sure I get exactly what I want." Her lips curved into a small smile. "Good. You deserve that." I studied her for a long moment, then nodded. "So do you." And for the first time in a long, long time, I believed it, Dot. Not just for me, Dot, but for both of us, Dot. Over the next few months, Emily and I stayed in touch, not out of obligation, not because of family pressure, but because we actually wanted to. It wasn't like we had suddenly become best friends, but the hostility that had defined so much of our relationship had faded, Dot. She was different now. She still had that effortless confidence, but it was tempered with something new. Humility, maybe. A sense of responsibility. She didn't just expect things to go her way anymore. She worked for them, and for the first time in our lives, I saw her as something other than the spoiled golden child. Dot. One evening, as I was scrolling through real estate listings, my phone buzzed with a text from her Dot Emily. "Call me when you get a chance. I found something you might like." Curious, I dialed her number. "What's up?" I asked. "So you know how I've been working with real estate clients," she said, excitement in her voice. "Well, I came across a house today, and I swear, Rachel, it's perfect for you." I raised an eyebrow. "You think so?" "Just hear me out. It's got everything you wanted. A big kitchen, lots of natural light, even a little backyard." She hesitated. "And it's in your budget." That got my attention. "Wait, it's actually in my budget?" "Yes, but houses in this area go fast, so if you want to see it, you need to move quickly." I chewed my lip, considering. I had been looking for months, but nothing had felt right. I wanted a fresh start, but I refused to settle. Dot. Still, something in Emily's voice made me trust her. "Okay," I said. "Send me the details. Let's check it out." The next morning I pulled up to the house, my stomach tight with anticipation. Emily was already there, waiting on the front porch. The moment I stepped inside, I knew Dot. It wasn't just a house. It was home. Warm wooden floors, stretched across the open living space. Sunlight spilled through the windows, casting a soft glow over the walls. The kitchen was exactly what I had pictured, a place where I could see myself cooking, hosting friends, building a life. Emily watched my face carefully. "So, what do you think?" I turned to her, my chest tight with emotion. I think this is it." A slow smile spread across her face. "Then let's make it happen." And for the first time in years, I let myself believe that maybe, just maybe, this was the fresh start we both needed. The following weeks were a whirlwind of paperwork, inspections, and negotiations. It was overwhelming at times, but unlike before, when I had felt powerless as my parents took my savings, this time I was in control. Every decision was mine. Every step forward was one I had earned. And Emily? She was there through all of it. She connected me with the right people, helped me navigate contracts, even walked through the house with me again to imagine what it would look like once it was truly mine. "I know I don't deserve a say," she said one afternoon as we stood in what would soon be my living room. "But I really think you should put a bookshelf here." I laughed, shaking my head. "You're probably right." It was strange, having her here, being part of something that, for once, wasn't about her. But she wasn't trying to take over. She wasn't expecting anything in return. She was just there, and that meant something. A few weeks later, the paperwork was finalized. The house was officially mine. I stood in the empty living room on my first night, surrounded by boxes, letting it sink in. This was mine. Not stolen, not sacrificed. Just mine, Dot. And for the first time in years, I felt free. Dot moving in was a process, but Emily helped where she could. Not in an overbearing way, but in small, thoughtful gestures. She brought over groceries on my first night, knowing I wouldn't have had time to shop. She helped me assemble furniture, cursing under her breath at confusing instructions, Dot. At one point, as we wrestled with a particularly stubborn coffee table, she sighed dramatically. "Okay, but how did you live without me before?" I rolled my eyes. "Oh, you mean back when you were making my life miserable?" She winced, but there was humor in her eyes. "Fair." We sat back, catching our breath, and after a moment her expression softened. "You know," she said quietly, "I really am proud of you." Something in my chest tightened. I hadn't realized how much I had wanted to hear that. I swallowed, nodding. "Thanks." She nudged my shoulder. "And also, you're welcome. Because without me, you'd probably be living in a shoebox." I laughed, shaking my head. "God, you're impossible." But for once it didn't bother me. Because beneath all of it, the teasing, the banter, was something real. Something we had spent our whole lives missing, Dot. We were finally, truly, sisters. Dot. And that was worth everything. Dot, as the weeks passed, things continued to change. Emily and I slowly built a new kind of relationship, one not based on rivalry, resentment, or even the shadows of our past. We shared dinners in my new home, spent quiet evenings watching movies, and occasionally talked about what it meant to finally let go of the things that had kept us apart for so long. I spent my days settling into my house, unpacking boxes, and slowly turning it into a space that felt like me. Every little detail, from the way the sunlight filtered through the curtains to the placement of my favorite chair by the window, was my choice. It wasn't just about the house, it was about reclaiming my life. But as much as I was enjoying the freedom, a part of me still hadn't fully processed everything. There were days when the weight of my past decisions pressed down on me. The guilt of helping Emily, of turning my back on her when she needed me most, still lingered like a cloud in my mind, Dot. It was on one of those days that Emily called me unexpectedly. "Hey, can I come over? I need to talk to you about something," she said. Dot. My stomach twisted slightly. It wasn't the first time she'd asked to talk, but the tone of her voice made me pause. There was a seriousness to it. "Sure, come by any time." She arrived an hour later, looking slightly disheveled, as though she had just stepped out of a whirlwind. Her eyes were red, and there was a tension in her posture that I hadn't seen in a while. "Hey," I said, standing to greet her. "What's going on?" She hesitated, glancing around the room before she took a seat on the couch. I've been thinking a lot. About everything, really." I sat down next to her, watching her carefully. "What do you mean?" She took a deep breath, then met my gaze. "I've been holding on to so much anger for so long, and it's been eating at me." My heart skipped a beat. "What do you mean?" I repeated, this time with more urgency. "I've been angry at you," she said quietly. "Angry at you for leaving me that way, for not helping me when I needed it most. But the truth is, I don't know what I expected. I took everything from you, and then I expected you to just give more. I blinked, surprised by the weight of her words. Emily, I had to walk away. You don't understand how much it hurt me to see you getting everything I had worked for, to watch our parents take from me without ever thinking of the consequences. I know, she whispered. I do know. And I'm sorry. I don't think I ever fully understood just how much damage I caused until I lost everything myself. She paused, the guilt in her eyes palpable. I was selfish, Rachel. I always have been. I swallowed, feeling something shift in my chest. I had never expected this conversation, had never even thought that Emily would come to this realization. Emily. My voice cracked. I didn't know what to do. I was so angry, and part of me wanted to help, but the other part of me wanted you to feel what it was like to lose everything. I get that, she said softly. But I'm not asking you to forget. I'm asking you to let me make it right. My eyes burned, and I looked away, trying to fight the rush of emotion that suddenly filled me. I wasn't sure if I could forgive her. I wasn't sure if I even wanted to, Dot. But then she did something unexpected, Dot. She reached into her bag and pulled out an envelope. This is for you. I stared at it, unsure of what to expect. Slowly, I took it from her hands, my fingers trembling as I opened it. Dot inside comma, there was a check. Not a small one, far from it. It was for the full amount of money our parents had taken from me for her wedding. I felt the weight of the check in my hand, the symbol of everything I had lost, and everything Emily was trying to give back. I know it doesn't fix everything, she said quietly, but I hope it's a start. I hope it shows you that I'm not the same person I was. I'm trying, Rachel. I'm really trying. I looked at the check again, then back at her. For a moment, words escaped me. I had never expected this from her, never thought that Emily could actually come through for me after everything that had happened. I don't know what to say, I whispered, feeling a knot in my throat. Say you'll forgive me. Not all at once, but eventually. She paused, her voice breaking just slightly. Say you'll let me make things right. I stared at her, my chest tightening with a mixture of emotions. Anger, relief, confusion. But under it all, something else was stirring, a flicker of hope. Eventually, I whispered, my voice thick with emotion. I'll try. And that was enough, Dot. We sat there in silence for a long time, the weight of everything between us settling into a new, unspoken understanding. Emily had given me something I had never thought I'd receive from her: honesty, responsibility, and the first step toward healing. Dot. It wasn't perfect, and it didn't erase the years of hurt. But it was a beginning. A real beginning, Dot. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like maybe, just maybe, the past didn't have to define us, Dot. By the time everything unraveled, I had become someone unrecognizable. I no longer cared about proving my worth to anyone, especially my parents, who had always treated me like a second choice. No longer the naive daughter, I was a woman who had learned the price of trusting blindly. I had taken everything back: the house, my life, my dignity. And in that process, I had found a new purpose. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about reclaiming myself, the villains. My parents, who had stolen my future for Emily's dream wedding. And Emily herself, who had always played the victim, manipulating everyone around her to get what she wanted. Jared, the charming, deceitful man who had shattered her world. He was part of the equation too. Dot. As I stood in that courtroom, I could feel the weight of every decision, every sacrifice, and every betrayal. My parents sat there ashamed, their heads bowed as the prosecutor went over the evidence. They had lied, they had stolen, and now they were being held accountable. My father, the man who had always preached about family loyalty, was finally being exposed for his greed. My mother, who had never once stood up for me, was now a woman who would lose everything. The money they had taken from me had been funneled into their own pockets, and now they would pay the price. And then there was Emily. She had been the catalyst for all this destruction, the one who had manipulated the situation to her advantage, always playing the role of the perfect daughter, the perfect bride. But now, as the walls closed in around her, I could see the cracks. She was no longer the golden child. She was the woman who had everything taken away from her, because she couldn't understand the value of trust or hard work. I had expected to feel satisfaction. I thought the sight of them finally getting what they deserved would give me peace. But it didn't. It just felt like a long, overdue closure. The final blow came when I presented the final piece of evidence in the case, a detailed account of the money my parents had stolen from me, and the shady financial transactions that had followed. I had spent months gathering it all, using every legal loophole, every contact I had. I had hired the best lawyer, who, like me, was determined to expose the truth. My parents had thought they were untouchable, but they had underestimated me. They had taken my savings without a second thought, thinking that I would just let it go, that I would continue to be the obedient daughter who put their needs above my own. But I was done with that. I wasn't going to sit back and let them ruin my life anymore. I wasn't going to be their scapegoat. And Emily? She hadn't anticipated the fallout. She thought I would forgive her, that she could play the victim and be bailed out once again. But when the truth came to light, how Jared had manipulated her, how she had allowed herself to be used, how her actions had led to the destruction of everyone's lives, there was no coming back. Jared's business collapsed under the weight of his own lies. The public saw him for what he was, a con man who had used Emily for his own gain. His reputation, once pristine, was now tarnished beyond repair. As for my parents, their social standing, so carefully constructed over the years, was shattered. My father's company was sold off, his assets frozen, and their debts piled up. For the first time, I saw them as they truly were, weak, small, and no longer in control. It felt good. But it didn't fill the emptiness that I had carried for so long. The months that followed were a blur. Emily moved out of our parents' house, no longer the golden child, but a woman who had to rebuild from nothing. She couldn't escape the shame of her actions, and she knew deep down that she had lost everything that truly mattered. I had no sympathy for her. She had learned the hard way that actions have consequences. As for my parents, their downfall was as public as it was humiliating. They had tried to salvage their dignity, but in the end the truth caught up with them. They were left with nothing. I had no intention of forgiving them, not after everything they had done. They would have to live with the consequences of their choices. On the other hand, had moved on. My house was now truly my home. I had turned it into a sanctuary, a place where I could breathe freely. I had no more ties to the past. I had started a new life, one that was built on my own terms. And as for love, it had become something I no longer chased. I had found peace in my own company, no more relying on others to define my worth. The future was mine to shape, and I had no intention of looking back. But the strangest thing happened, something I never expected. My phone buzzed one evening with a message. It was from Emily. "I'm sorry, Rachel. I know I can't undo what I did, but I'm trying to make it right. I wish you could see that." I stared at the message for a long time, my emotions swirling. The old me would have jumped at the chance to fix things. But the new me, the woman who had learned the value of standing on her own, she simply put the phone down, stood up, and walked out into the crisp night air, leaving the past exactly where it belonged. The next day, I ran into my parents at the courthouse. They were trying to salvage what little they could, clinging to their reputations. My mother tried to speak to me, to beg me for forgiveness, but I had no interest in her pleas. "You wanted this, didn't you, Mom?" I said quietly, a bitter smile playing on my lips. "You wanted to teach me a lesson, make me pay for standing up for myself." She blinked, her lips trembling. "Rachel, I cut her off. "I'm sorry, I really am. But you made your choice, and now you get to live with it." With that, I turned and walked away, the weight of everything finally lifting from my shoulders. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't looking for retribution. I had taken back my life, and nothing they could do could take that away from me. I looked up at the sky, the first stars beginning to appear. The future was wide open, and for the first time, I was ready to face it, on my own terms.